Hey guys, today's video is about mats. I'm going to be covering what they are and how they differ from masks. I'm also going to discuss the key concepts and principles of working with mats, and I'm going to go over the different mat options that you can use. Without further ado, let's get to it. A mat is a tool which allows you to define the visibility of a layer. Simply put, a mat lets you hide or reveal specific portions of a layer, much like what a mask does. So you may be wondering, how does a mat differ from a mask? A mask exists within the layer that it affects, so if you move, scale, and rotate the layer, the mask also transforms with it. A mat, however, is an independent layer. It can be an image, video, solid, text, or shape that exists apart from the layer that it affects. So unless I link the mat to the receiving layer, any transformation I make will not affect the mat. In terms of application, a mask is most commonly used for two things. First is to crop out or localize focus on a layer, and you want the mask to move or transform with it organically. The second one is to animate a closed path over time. On the other hand, a mat is used mainly as a fixed bounding or cutting layer in which other layers move in and out of. But of course, not all mats are designed to be stationary. You can definitely animate them if you want to. On a slightly more technical note, we're going to be diving mainly into how a mat defines the transparency of another layer using either its alpha channel or the luminance of its pixels. Now I know that sounded a bit confusing, so I'm going to break it down and explain it the simplest way I can. So let's first try to understand what an alpha channel is. In After Effects, as you may or may not already know, color information is contained in three channels: the red, green, and blue channels. To demonstrate this concept, here's an image in full color. If I dissect this, you'll see that the full color image is essentially a combination of the RGB channels. Now, aside from these three channels, there's actually an invisible fourth channel called the alpha channel. To put things simply, just think of the alpha channel as the layer's transparency. Although invisible, we can actually visualize the alpha channel in After Effects as a grayscale image. Simply click on the Show Channel and Color Management Settings button, which is currently set to RGB, then select Alpha. But before we select this, I want you to keep in mind that our layer is fully opaque. If I toggle the transparency grid, you won't see any areas of transparency because, as I've said, our layer is fully opaque. Quick side note, don't confuse transparency with opacity. They are inversely proportional parameters, which means when a layer is fully transparent, then it has no opacity, hence zero visibility. On the flip side, when a layer is fully opaque, then it has no transparency, hence full visibility. So let's see how our fully opaque layer appears when we view the alpha channel. Notice that our layer turned completely white. This is because, in principle, when viewing the alpha channel, white indicates no transparency, black indicates full transparency, and shades of gray indicate partial transparency. Let's look at another example. Here I have a transparent video. I'm going to toggle the transparency grid just to make sure that it is indeed transparent. Right off the bat, we can see these areas of full transparency, so based on our guiding principle, we can expect these to be black when we view the alpha channel. We also have some faint smoke over here, so expect these to be light gray. If I zoom in quickly, you'll see that there are areas that are fully opaque, so we can expect these to be white, while these areas with partial transparency should be different shades of gray. Let's view the alpha channel on a new composition viewer. So just as we expected, we have the black, white, and gray areas. These pieces of information basically tell us that the layers that we apply the mat to will only be fully visible on the white areas, partially visible on the gray areas, and invisible on the black areas. Now that we've covered what an alpha channel is and what it means to make a mat using a layer's alpha channel, Let's now establish what luminance is and understand what it means to make a matte using the luminance of a layer. To put things simply, just think of the luminance as the perceived brightness of a layer. The principle that you have to keep in mind is very much similar to the one that we had for the alpha channel matte. So when you make a matte using a layer's luminance, the brighter the pixels are, the more opaque or visible the receiving layer is going to be. Conversely, the darker the pixels are, the more transparent the receiving layer is going to be. To demonstrate this, I have here a non-transparent shape layer with a gradient fill that goes from white to black. If I were to use the luminance of this layer as a matte for this gradient background, then this would be the resulting image. Here you'll see that the receiving layer is fully opaque where the brightest portion of the matte is. On the other end, where the darkest portion of the matte is located, the receiving layer is fully transparent. And as for the middle portion, we have varying transparencies. So that's basically all that you need to understand about mattes that deal with the layer's luminance. Now it's time to put everything we've learned into practice as we go over a couple of matte options that we can use. Let's start with the track mattes. Before proceeding, it's important to note that a track matte only affects the layer directly beneath it. So let's say I want to use a text layer as a track matte. I'll simply create my text, make sure that it's above the layer that I want to affect, then on the receiving layer, choose from the different track matte options. If you don't see this drop-down menu, then just right-click on here, go to Columns, and make sure Modes is checked. So for our options, we have Alpha Matte, Alpha Inverted Matte, Luma Matte, and Luma Inverted Matte. If we select Alpha Matte, then the visibility of the receiving or underlying layer will be defined by the alpha channel of the text layer above it. Just to reiterate, think of the alpha channel as the layer's transparency. As you can see, each of the letters in the text layer is fully opaque, while the space around them is fully transparent. So we can expect that our underlying layer will only be visible in the areas that the letters cover. Let's see if our expectations are correct. Next, let's try the alpha inverted option, which basically just inverts the visible areas. Let's bring back our transparent video. Based on what we've discussed earlier, if we use this video as an alpha matte, then the underlying layer should be completely visible on these non-transparent areas and slightly visible on these partially transparent areas. For the Luma Matte option, the visibility of the underlying layer will be defined by the luminance of the text layer above it. Again, think of the luminance as the layer's perceived brightness. Since our whole text layer is at its brightest, we can expect the same results as the alpha matte. But if I put a gradient ramp effect to establish different levels of brightness throughout the layer, then this is what we get. Based on this example, we can deduce that Luma mattes are best used on high contrast layers like this black and white video. A Luma matte is also a good option if you want to use a non-transparent silhouette video as a stencil. Just make sure to adjust the contrast between the dark and light areas for a cleaner cutout. As I mentioned earlier, a track matte only affects the layer directly beneath it. So if you want to use a single matte on multiple layers, then you may want to consider pre-composing all your underlying layers so you can matte a single pre-comp. Now, this can be a solution, but it's definitely not the most effective and efficient, especially if you're constantly making modifications to your underlying layers. You'll also notice that this method messed up the blending modes of my layers. If you don't prefer this method, then you may opt for the set matte effect. Two main advantages of using the set matte are, number one, it doesn't bulk up your timeline because you won't be needing additional matte layers when you use it, and number two, your matte layer can be placed anywhere in the layer stacking order. So I'll simply search for the set matte effect and apply it on one of the receiving layers. By default, Use for Matte is set to alpha channel, which is just what I needed. So now, I'll just select my matte from the drop-down menu and then I'm all set. My layer is now confined within the bounds of my alpha matte. Now that I have this set up, I can just copy this and paste it on the rest of the receiving layers. The set matte effect only works on rasterized layers. In After Effects, only the text and shape layers are automatically rasterized. On the other hand, solids, images, and videos are not automatically rasterized. However, there is a super quick fix. For solids, if I apply the set matte effect and leave it as is, then it surely won't work properly. To fix this, I'll just simply toggle the continuously rasterize switch. For images and videos, if I apply the set matte effect and leave it as is, it might look like it worked properly, but if you look closely, the matte size is different. If I move my layer, it's as if the matte also moves with it. And over here, you'll see that there's no continuously rasterize switch that you can toggle. To fix these issues, simply pre-compose the image, and you should now be able to toggle the continuously rasterize switch, and the set matte effect should now work perfectly. And that is it for today's video. I hope you found this helpful. If there are things that you still don't quite understand, feel free to message me and we'll sort things out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.